And I just want to say something. I think we're at a big moment here. We're debating trivia. Like, I think the two most existential issues are nuclear war or what's happening to our health. And whatever you think, and I used to be a never Trumper. Watching him care about this issue, watching what's happening with the RFK, watching what's happening of how that's resonating with voters, seeing Smalley, from my small vantage point inside, there is tremendous connection of these two men and moral clarity of seeing what's happening.
Let's have a look at this. The trivialization and the accusations of Nazism that have surrounded Trump since he came down the old golden escalator. Is it true? Is he a fascist? Is he a retro Hitler? Or is he really a bull in the china shop of globalism, preventing them from pursuing their agenda? I'm still trying to work it out myself in the midst of a hurricane.
Is that we have long known that Donald Trump has revered the Nazis. He has revered Hitler.
Revered them. Revered them. I wonder what the claim is there. Like, what the basis for that claim is. Like, to revere the Nazis. There's no way you can revere the Nazis. It was a dismal, murderous and insane project.
He's read his book. He used to say he had it on his nightstand. Donald Trump has had a very sinister philosophy, wanting to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people up based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender, etc. And when he uses language like this, I don't think that it's a Freudian slip. I think that the danger of a Donald Trump is that he would absolutely try to exterminate an entire group of people because he thinks that their genes are somehow different than his and faulty. And I say this with all the sternness that you hear in my voice.
That's so weird. They've gone so far with that idea. What has he done? That's so mad. Did he say that? Has he actually said that? It's so extraordinary. On one hand, there's the absolute trivialization of this election campaign, mad little anecdotes, stupid, dumb stories. And on the other hand, there's this kind of reprehensible escalation of the threat of ultimately an independent libertarian politician couched within the post-Tea Party Republican movement, forming alliances with other independents like Tulsi Gabbard and Bobby Kennedy, which is obviously a disruption to the bureaucratic globalism that's been defining politics from Clinton onwards, or Blair onwards in my country, that was not interrupted by a Bush administration or successive conservative governments in my country. That's what the uniparty means. That's what globalism means. That's what globalism wants. Just to give you a point around the trivialization of this thing, this is a moment on Colbert. You surely saw it the other day.
When you first became the nominee and named Tim Walz as your vice president nominee, people were calling it the vibe election. All the vibes were all good. But elections, I think, are won on vibes, because one of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with. So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like?
Filthy propaganda.
Okay.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Think of your integrity. Think of the middle-class girl that you once were with aspirations and ideals. Think about God. Think about truth. Don't pretend to have a beer with Stephen Colbert. Don't pretend to participate in this giddy spectacle I've seen inside of it. I've seen inside that spectacle. I've been on those shows. Stephen Colbert, he's a Catholic. He's a good man. I'm sure. I'm convinced of it. But you know what it's like when you're in the insidious tendrils of that beast. That machine is giving you money. You have to believe what it believes. Otherwise, you'd have to break away, become independent, oppose the machine, believe in people, believe in the power of transcendence. It's a tough gig.
Now, we asked ahead of time, because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life. You asked Miller High Life.
What do you think we should have? Say Miller High Life, because it's appealing to this blue-collar Democrat, stuff went on.
I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had...
Oh no, she can't open it. I hope she's not like that with that handgun she's revealed she owns on Oprah. Wait a minute, I'll shoot you right out of the coconut.
Beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
So cheers.
Cheers.
There you go.
Now I can do this. I can be normal. I'll just have a drinky of the old normalcy. Here we go. I'm a regular person. I can bloody well do this. Put that in there. Go baseball! That's just a regular presidential candidate there. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's being accused of being a Nazi. Meanwhile, we hover on the precipice through giddy brinkmanship, teetering on a preposterous apocalypse.
Ooh. That tastes like the beautiful city of Milwaukee,
The
Wisconsin.
champagne of beers.
There you go.
What a terrifying spectacle it is indeed. And spectacle is the right word. You'll be familiar, of course, with the work of Guy Debord, who said that what we're living in is a sort of a set of illusions anymore, that you can't feel reality or truth. You can't feel a visceral or spiritual truth because they're masking that, they're changing it. Here's a conversation between Callie Means and Joe Rogan. This is all before we get to Bobby Kennedy, by the way. This conversation with RFK is amazing because I believe what I love about RFK, this is authentic. Have a look at this conversation between Callie Means, who's done more than anyone to help us understand the horrors of big food and how big food, in a sense, tee you up for big pharma, and Joe Rogan, who's done more for independent media than Joe Rogan. Anyway, in this conversation between these two, I would argue brilliant men, we get an insight into the trivialization of the electoral campaign while we hover dangerously close to personal and maybe even global death.
Trump wants this to be a generational issue for him. And I just want to say something. I think we're at a big moment here. We're debating trivia. Like, I think the two most existential issues are nuclear war or what's happening to our health. And whatever you think, and I used to be a never Trumper. Watching him care about this issue, watching what's happening with the RFK, watching what's happening of how that's resonating with voters.
I posted the other day on X how many people that have never dreamed they would vote Republican are considering it, just because of the fear and threat of globalism and because of the mad masquerade we're watching unfold. What the hell happened with Joe Biden? What's he doing now? How did Kamala Harris become the candidate? What's going on with Nancy Pelosi? How's she making all of this money? What is Tim Walz? What is he even? Why does he look like that? They can't form another government, can they? Of course they can't. The reason that they seem so peculiarly powerless, odd vassals and empty ciphers is because the power is coming from somewhere else. You recognise that, don't you? You know that this is spiritual warfare. It's not the first time you've heard that phrase. You're hearing it all over the place, aren't you? You're sensing it yourself. You're feeling it. Let me tell you that this is a spiritual moment. This is an opportunity, I believe, to change course. I'm not saying that Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard and Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy are going to bring anything like perfection, but at least there are people that are explicit and open, believe in free speech, care about health, and generally speaking are anti-war, and I pray that it can become total anti-war as the total policy for that new movement. It's got to be better than the sort of sub-3, like the three-letter agencies below them, FBI, CIA. They're not going to be marshaled, reined in under a Kamala Harris presidency. And the bizarre bureaucracies above them, I'm talking about globalist bureaucracies, specifically NATO, WHO, WEF, they're not going to be opposed by that Democratic Party movement. Think about the pandemic. They're part of the confluence of that funnel of dark power. You may know already that flavoured air is the #1 alternative to vaping and smoking. Today's sponsor, Fume, helps you kick your bad habit in an enjoyable way without nicotine. The flavours are non-toxic, kind of like herbal teas. My favourite flavour at the moment is orange vanilla, but there's a whole host of flavours. Fume serves over 300,000 customers. You can be their next success story, supping on flavoured air. You can satisfy your oral fixation, don't be childish, through a passive diffusion system. For a limited time, you can use my code RussellBrand for your free topper, the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable and reusable. I love that little thing. It helps me suck flavoured air and relax at the same time. Head to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com. Use the code RussellBrand or scan the QR code on screen right now to get your free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today. Thank you, Fume, for sponsoring our show and for flavouring our sweet, sweet air.
Seeing Smalley, from my small vantage point inside, there is tremendous connection of these two men and moral clarity of seeing what's happening. And my question is this, and to anyone kind of considering voting in this election, Trump is going to say stupid shit. He is Trump. We know who he is. There's two important questions to ask. Who sees this corruption and institutional capture that's going to destroy our country, I think, to an existential level? And who is willing to suffer that blowback? Who is willing to go up against these military-industrial complex, the healthcare-industrial complex, the education-industrial complex that's making us a non-competitive? Like, they are ready. Who is going to appoint? This is a question I have. Who do we believe is going to appoint people like RFK, people like Elon Musk, to stir stuff up? Who is going to do that? Like, that to me is the foundational question. And I do consider this the most important election of my lifetime, watching these two men, because it is so genuine. And there is like a genuine desire to truly transform, to see our broken corruption and institutions for what it is. And really, truly, I think prevent nuclear war and dramatically reverse our health crisis. Trump has said that his one big mistake last time was personnel, was that the pharma and the ag slithered in and gave him the list of names. Everybody should ask, do you think RFK is going to have an influence on those names based on what Trump has said? And I think he is. And I think people like Elon are going to be involved. I think there's this coalition of people that are coming together and Trump's going to put in power and listen to. And this is a bipartisan issue. And no matter what happens, we have to solve this issue. But I will say this so clearly with the most conviction I can. We will be on the verge, I think, of a health population collapse, societally destabilizing event, unless true executive leadership sees this corruption and this issue for what it is and says we need a radical transformation in how we see agriculture and how we see health, our two largest industries. I think we have to have that. And every single member of Congress I meet with, including Democrats, say that in order for this issue to get done, we need a president to make this the priority, to talk, because that gives us air cover. And there could be transformational change if a president does that. So that's what I've seen from being in this. And I can tell you, President Trump has kept every promise to RFK and deeply cares about this issue.
Well, that just seems like common sense, doesn't it? A matter of prioritization. On the brink of war, you need to reevaluate and reassess your position and your conditions. I believe this is a pivotal moment. I believe this is a pivotal moment for all of us individually and, of course, for us collectively. And as I've said many times, the reason that I feel optimistic about this election, more than I have for a long while really, is precisely because Bobby Kennedy is someone that I know personally. I know him to be authentic, a man of integrity. And I can tell you this, if the Democratic Party hadn't become a hollowed out vassal for corporatist, globalist and deep state power, they would have made that dude their nominee. That's what he wanted. He was an anti-establishment candidate like Bernie Sanders was way back in 2016. I know, I can hear you. I don't even need to read the comments, although I appreciate you getting into those comments. I really do. You better believe that. What I'm telling you is anti-establishment, anti-big business, anti-corporatism, anti-globalist candidates can come from all over the place. As long as they're not talking about centralizing the power of the state, facilitating the power of corporatism to the degree where it becomes globalist power, i.e. corporations are transcendent and big enough to maneuver and control whole nations. And if you want an example of that, look at the Ukraine-Russia war and look at who's benefiting from that. Look at Halliburton's role in it. Look at BlackRock's role in it. Look at where power might truly lie. If you want to oppose that, you've got to start thinking independently. If you want to oppose that, you've got to start thinking spiritually. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and chat? If you're watching this on YouTube, turn on the notification bell. It's the only way they're ever going to let you know that we're here, because they're part of this globalist machine. That's why there's antitrust lawsuits going on all over the place. They have to strangle true free voices and thinkers like you. Our new The Oracle series, our first ever group interviews designed to bring the greatest and most authoritative voices in particular subjects together for the very first time. Robert Malone, Dr. Pierre Corey, and Steve Kirsch.
What we've experienced is a globally deployed psychological bioterrorism playbook. It's well developed.
And then I started to see just global propaganda directed at essentially distorting, dismissing, and suppressing the evidence of efficacy. And I saw it as a crime.
And at that point, I knew that this was not just a coincidence. There were too many black swans over too short a period. I've never heard anything like this story in my life.
They seem to get the human psyche so well when it comes to brainwashing us and propagandizing us to the direction that they want us to go in, that you would think that they would know that pulling all of these various tactics would actually just push support towards Trump, not away from him.
Ryan Ruth, some of his posts even show that he appeared to have been working with, in his own words, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev. He's doing effectively military intelligence, human trafficking of terrorists.
It's in this context that I think Ruth was kind of radicalized. He decided that while he wanted to assassinate Putin, the easier thing would be to assassinate Donald Trump.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.